Meeting of the Committee of Community and Economic Development to order. I'd like to ask for a roll call. Eileen, would you see if everyone's present?
Alderman Wesley.
Here.
Alderman Police.
Here.
Alderman Lewiton.
Here.
Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Cadella.
Here.
Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Coles.
Here.
Alderman Knight.
Here.
I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes. I make a motion that we approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are carried. For the meeting tonight, we are discussing the choice of taking Lakota for the Thorndale Corridor Master Plan. This is one of two final candidates. I'm going to have them make a presentation, and but I don't know the gentleman out there, and I don't know who's their lead. Okay. Thank you. I've just been handed your card. John LaMotta. Would you take and give your company's presentation, please?
Let's borrow this. I'll borrow this while we're waiting for this thing to sync up. Again, first we thought we'd just introduce ourselves so you know who all is here. And Rick, if you would like to start.
Yes, hi. My name is Rick Morses with Trans Systems. I'm a principal in charge of our offices within the Schaumburg. Sorry about that. Hello there. I'm a principal with Trans Systems in charge of our offices in Schaumburg and also the city of Chicago. And we are specialists in transportation planning, design, and traffic engineering.
I'm Steve Friedman. I'm the president of SB Friedman and Company, and we are real estate advisors and development consultants specializing in redevelopment and in public-private partnerships.
I feel like I'm at a Senate hearing here. What do we know? When do we know it? I'm John Lamont. I'm a city planner and principal with the Lakota Group, and we would be the lead firm, and we're going to explain all that in a minute. I just want to make sure you get everybody's names first.
And I'm Daniel Grove. I'm a landscape architect and planner with the Lakota Group and senior associate on this project.
Okay, we've brought the three firms together into a team that has worked together on a lot of other projects, and one in particular, the West O'Hare impact study, if you want to call it that. We call it more of a land use and transportation study. It's the three firms work together closely on that. Trans Systems and Rick were the lead. In this case, because we're kind of leading with land use for your study, we would be the lead, but we kind of finish each other's sentences. It's interchangeable. And the good news is we would be taking a very comprehensive approach to planning for your corridor. So we've got all the different disciplines. So our firm is planners and urban designers. We can do the big picture regional and city planning down to districts and areas and sites, and then take it through design all the way at the ground level. Steve's firm does all the economic and market and financial work. They are experts at putting development plans together and making sure they're financially feasible and that they're going to work in the market, and also in helping communities negotiate with developers and getting projects off the ground. And as Rick said, they've got the whole range of transportation from traffic all the way through heavy rail. We worked on a huge intermodal project with them. We're working on the Route 120 corridor with Trans Systems. They also have all the civil and environmental engineering things that we would need. So we want to take a comprehensive approach. We understand the scope of work is going to be shaped with us together if we were selected. So we're excited about that. We think we've got all the disciplines represented. If you look at the second page, you've got a little bit more on what disciplines and what are the things we would bring. Again, it's going to be tailored to what you need for this project. In talking with staff in our earlier little interview committee, I think it's apparent that you want to get into some of the depth in some of these market, economic, and infrastructure issues. If you go to the next page, why our team? Starting out, one is I think our experience directly just right in on the whole study with the county and with the Western O'Hare Impact Group. Already on the ground, we can hit the ground running. We've got a lot of data already together. Steve can talk a little bit about that in a minute. We really got a feel for the big picture here, what's going on, and we'd like to take it to that next level with you. But then more specifically, we have run into every kind of land use scenario that you could imagine. We've got from industrial to commercial to residential to open space parks. Mixed use is a big thing. We've been working on this for a long time. our firm gets into either mixed use in the buildings or mixed use on the site, as well as specific industrial or commercial or residential type uses. Our firms, especially Rick's firm, has worked in every kind of infrastructure condition imaginable. I don't think there's anything such as a greenfield site anymore. It's all complicated infrastructure that needs work and needs help. And then we've worked with every kind of building type. So anything we can imagine together as a team and vision for this area, we could put on paper and show you how that would work, both on a plan as well as in 3 dimensions. So if it's a townhouse, it's an office building, a hotel, a mixed-use building, an industrial park type building, we can get that going. And again, our range has been not only in putting the plans together, but getting most of these things built. That's one of the things we, knock on wood, pride ourselves that we have plans and designs and engineering things that actually get things built. We also have become known for what we call a mid-max approach. Our land planning technique is to show you as leaders and community residents and stakeholders a range of options, so it's not just here's one size fits all and does that work. We can show you a minimum amount of change, things kind of adjusted. It's like if we're working in a downtown and you just put a little paint on the businesses and a couple of trees, does that work for you? A mid amount of change where we might prune out some sites and fill them in, and a max amount of change, maybe we clear out block and block and block in a whole district and show you what could happen, kind of the what if. So the mid-max approach. We also have had extensive experience, all 3 firms, with community planning and consensus building. We pride ourselves on that, as well as going out there, working with everybody, some not always in favor, some in favor, and getting some consensus on where we're going to go with this plan. Where are we going to go with this redevelopment? How are we going to get this thing moving? So we can be very helpful there. We do a lot of team building with you, so if we were so picked, we would look forward to some really good working meetings in the front end to set the scope up, to get some team building, get to know everybody, to kind of get the mindsets and work together. We all believe, and we always preach, if we are going to be hired, we'd like to have all our other disciplines together. So we're very multidisciplinary and very committed. Also, you're going to be seeing principals on this. I'm a principal in my firm, and these gentlemen are as well. You will see us here. We will be here in all the meetings. Daniel's one of our senior members, was leading the West O'Hare impact study for our crew. You will see us. We will be hands-on. We'll be very involved. And we go that extra mile, and again, we get things built through these plans. We know they're, the big bubble plans just don't work anymore. You got to really show some specifics. The next thing I'd like to do is just take 2 minutes, knowing that the scope isn't done yet, and we'll build it together if picked. But we really have a kind of a 3-phase approach. This could be 5, 6, or 2 phases, depending on what you need. The first thing would be the state of the corridor. There's a lot of information you have. There's information we picked up through the county study. What are the negatives? What are the issues? What are the needs? What are the constraints? But our team loves to push also what are the opportunities? What are the positives? What can we do besides just look at all the negatives? And we've listed all the different categories, things that all of our firms can hit. We can go in depth in the market. We can go very in depth, we think, on the traffic to really get a feel for what's there today and tomorrow. The transit, I think having transit on the team will be critical because we can get a real picture for what transit could be like, and hopefully with fingers crossed should be like soon. Infrastructure, environmental, and then we ended up really with what we call, for lack of a better word, the development program. And the development program is what Steve has always drilled into us. We don't go beyond phase 1 until we get a development program. What is it that we're going to be planning to? How much will the market support? What is the policy guidance you're giving us? What is the land going to show us that we can do from a capacity standpoint? So you have a development program that gets adjusted through the process, but something to work towards. Phase 2, if we shift to that, is then the visioning. A lot of fun. We're known for these processes where we roll up the sleeves. Some of you might have come to our West O'Hare study workshops. We can break out into groups. We can have hundreds of people if need be. We can make it a working group with you and some of your senior staff, however you want to set it up. But we will come in with all kinds of alternatives. This is a little picture of some mid-max approaches we did in downtown Highland Park. They had a super block that hadn't been developed to where they wanted it. They've got the historic tower, the Sunset Foods, and a gas station. It wasn't optimal. It was hodgepodge. And so we went to the far left, a little minimal change, clean up things, fix up the Sunset Foods, restripe the parking lots. The second one to the bottom on the right would be infill a little bit, leave the gas station, and then the top was new grocery store, which they've been talking about, move the gas station, really infill and develop the site to the max. And sometimes, depending on the process, we might get super maxes or we might get 2 maxes, but to show you these range. Well, if you go back, and I'm sorry, one more time. Also, with Steve's folks on the team, we can get deep into economic feasibility. So market study gives us the picture of the market. The economic feasibility, we did this for the Village of Glenview. He can drill down and do the pro formas as far deep as we needed, or even on a broader planning level. What are these sites from a future feasibility standpoint? And if need be, we can work with your finance folks on fiscal balance. What does it mean to the future of the balance sheet and the fiscal outline of the city or the village that we're working in, to say, does this make sense going beyond just the development? How does it affect our taxes and whatnot? And then, as I mentioned, options and alternatives. And then phase 3, pretty straightforward, would be a master plan, whether it's a district or corridor. I know it's still being defined. Does it include downtown or not? But we really start to put this together, and it's got to be a broad vision so everybody feels good about it, and this is where we're going. But in this day and age, especially with Rick and all the transportation things we need to do, it's got to be detailed, and it's got to be a technical framework as well, and the future direction. Go to the next. What we also wanted to talk about, community participation could be whatever level you want. It could be a technical working committee. It could be big open workshops. We've even been on email call-in through cable TV in this Village of Palatine, where people were emailing questions into us, and we were answering them as we were answering people in the audience. So any range that you can see. A lot of it is a learning curve. All of us will be taking a learning curve here to learn what are the strengths and weaknesses of the area, and what can we do to overcome that. A lot of consensus building, and then the shared vision. We're going to just kind of water ski over a couple projects to give you a little bit of flavor of what we were into. We kept it short, so we didn't put all of Steve's and Trans Systems in here. But we just want to touch on uses to get us all starting to think more of vision. If you go to the next one, downtown planning for Elmhurst down the road. We helped get them reorganized and recalibrated in their downtown plan. They then wanted us to get into design. We got into all their signage and their identity building, gateways so people knew when you were entering the city, directionals. There were a lot of people that couldn't find their downtown, that couldn't find their districts, so we went through that process with them as well. Next one is the North Shore Corporate Park in Glenview, very modern business park, similar to some of the things you have. We've got the experience of not only planning them, but then we were on call to the developer to actually site the buildings and get them oriented the right way, including how to make sure that we don't have any impacts on the roads with the truck access and the loading. We had to move loading docks and things around. And then identity for them. They had no identity out in Willow Road. They were going to kind of be buried behind a commercial area. So we wanted to build up a front door for them as well. Next one was the Starline. Steve's firm and our firm worked on this. There was 33 potential stations on the outer circumferential, the AJ&E. We ended up doing about 150 land plans. Steve's folks did the market work to see what the market could be in those mile and half miles around the station. We then drilled down and laid out how these things would work. And it was from everything from leave it alone to completely scrape the site, to do major redevelopment, to do light redevelopment, industrial or mixed use. Sometimes we had a greenfield site, and sometimes we didn't. This is the 173 Green Oaks south end of Abbott Labs site, where we looked at the land use and then the specific land planning concepts on the right. Next one was just downstream from you. We worked on several sub-areas for Rolling Meadows and then pulled it together into their comp plan. Their biggest one was, what do we do on that tollway? We've got some good stuff, but we have some things that are very underdeveloped and not really the optimal use for the city. Some things like a one-story warehouse next to a Class A office building that kind of developed hodgepodge over time. They wanted to really get the density up. We've got those 3 boxes, and the 3 little crosses are the 3 potential locations for their Starline on the tollway. When we got done with the plan and the study, we actually then used this to help submit some of the information to RTA and the feds to get the funding lined up. And we showed them what they have on the top, just basic infill development, and then on the bottom start filling in the density, the hotels, the office complexes, with bridging across over into the train area. The next one real quick, downtown Palatine. We did the planning, and Steve did a lot of the financial advisory and development advisory to the village. A very big success story. I think in 5 years they built over 1,000 units around that train station. Metra and RTA were very cooperative in opening up their parking lots so we can get developed on those parking lots. We consolidated the parking into 2 strategic located decks, and then things started happening and infilling from there. And if you go to the next page, if you haven't been there, they've got one of the most shared parking decks we've ever run into, office buildings, retail at the first floor, row homes, condos, a whole range of products that communities need and would like to get near these train stations. Uptown redevelopment plan in Park Ridge. Steve's folks advised the city on how to get the development going and putting their guideline plan together and recruiting the developer and looking at the numbers and the finance. Then we were on a developer team, one of 19, and our team got picked. It's under construction now. This one will be done fairly soon. and it's a very unique mixed-use project that kind of infills the rest of the downtown. Parking below, retail at the first level, condos and townhouses mixed in as well. Downtown Deerfield, a lot of mixed use, a lot of range of uses here with office, parking underneath, condos in the back, very walkable, grocery stores even integrated into the retail mix. So things we could look at with for your area as well. Parkway North Center, will end on that. This was started by LaSalle Partners, which then became Jones Lang LaSalle. Car America, a big real estate trust out of Washington, then brought us in to finish the rest of it. We consolidated the buildings, created separate parking fields, got a campus feel in the middle with the stormwater management, redid all their signage and all their wayfinding if you go to the next site, and they've built almost the whole campus out. So again, if we're visioning the future of your area, what is it? Is it office? Is it hotel? Is it some mix of business park? We can really look at that whole range. And last but not least, we thought we'd just touch on it to get the juices flowing a little bit. Some of the things we ran into in the study of the Western O'Hare, if we go to the next. As you know, we took a very big picture look. Trans-Systems was leading the whole northeast corner of the county. What if and when this transit amenity of opening up Western O'Hare comes? And as you know, a lot of this was a marker on a piece of paper that said point A to point B is the expressway extension, and here's York Road, and here's that. And people really hadn't a chance to visualize physically how that would work. And Trans-Systems help us get a feel on the physical layout of those roads. We then laid together in a lot of land use and development stuff with Steve's economic study, and you can see some of the uses and things that we started to work on. The Western Terminal obviously is the thing that starts it, and it's got a whole new approach as to where it's going to be, but what's new going to the west? How can we open up like they did to the east, but much better? Go to the next one. The roadway options, if you remember some of the PowerPoint shows we did about boulevards, arterials, expressways, green, no green, roundabouts, interchanges, and then we started laying in some of the development scenarios so you can see what it would do once these things were changed. Next one was then the character, and that's one of the big things now. What is the character of the roadway, and how do we address it the right way so we're not just reacting to a strip of pavement? The next then is the transit. I think, as Rick has been telling me all the way through the process, a lot of people just hadn't visualized this area for transit. They knew that somebody said once the Blue Line might come across the airport to the terminal, or the Star Line was up to the north somewhere, but how does it come down and into our communities here? So we not only visualized it, we laid out different options, the BRT, the Blue Line, the Star Line, and some of the others that have been talked about, and it really got the juices flowing. And then closer into your community, evaluating things that need to be worked on, whether the West O'Hare comes or not, what can we do to make things better and some of your access needs and your visibility needs. And then we started, if you go to the next one, looking at opportunities both in downtown and along the corridor. Is it some more and newer, fresher business park? Is it office, hotel? What is it? We started doing a bunch of the options. If you go to the next couple, the what ifs, more business park oriented, a little bit of office. Go to the next one. Then created more of a central hub for where the train station possibly could be if transit ever came, but also playing off the intersections and the connections when we start taking out some of the frontage roads, with maybe fixing up to the east, some business park, office clustered in the center. If you go to the next one, you can see a little tighter. The things that we could then flesh out with you, how much of this, how much of that, drill down on the market a little bit more and on the traffic, and really start to fill in the puzzle a little bit more. If you go to the next one. The development opportunities, as we saw them, were really at those interchanges or intersections, those key intersections. But as we talked about with you in the last interview, we think you're in the middle, your position. The task has got a lot of things set already with their park over there, the Chancellery. And they're going to have some infill, but some of the road systems and things are set. There's not a lot of work that can be done there. Bensonville's tight up against the airport. They've got some opportunities. There's going to be a big interchange there. But we think you're in the middle. With the two interchanges, we can really do something special. Some of the good things that have happened on the east side, if they were planned and done ahead of time, would have been way better. The connecting of buildings, the massing of buildings, the getting it more walkable and more pedestrian friendly. So that's what we left as a concept, as a vision for you all to discuss, and to your credit, you're following up on it, and then even some of the brainstorming on downtown. What can be done to get that rolling as far as the ripple effect from Western O'Hare? And then last but not least is the future. We would love to work with you. This is a sketch we did for what it might look like on the tollway or on the expressways, the station in the middle, your bridges going to east or west or north or south, and then some more modern buildings masked up right to it. We've even talked about some of the things that the Metro system in DC have done, where they actually put the buildings right up on the station. You walk right out in your shirt sleeves, you don't have to wear a coat, and you go right into your office building. And Trans-System's got a lot of those examples from around the country. So we'd like to do more visioning with you. We'd like to drill down into the level of detail and do these assessments with you and build these approaches for the next round here. So that's quickly just so we can open up for questions where we're going.
Thank you, John, for opening up the discussion with a good presentation. I'd like to ask the acting city manager, Jeff Murmas, to give the point of view from staff, how they view the activity that's being developed. Always involves staff.
Well, I certainly could comment on that, but I think the intent of tonight's meeting was a Q&A with our guests tonight. I don't know if Alderman Police or Alderman Kadala have anything to offer from our selection committee. I doubt it, so it was really more Q&A time for the elected officials, not staff comment.
Well, thank you. I was hoping you would lead off with the first question. Eugene, what do you want to say?
Very good presentation. I have a couple questions on the funding for this project. You say that you have ways that could help fund this project. Could you highlight on that, maybe?
You want development funding or transportation funding? We got both.
Well, I guess both will be fine to start.
Yeah, if I could, let me start with the transportation system. And I think that's one of the advantages of staying with the Lakota Friedman Trans-Systems team is that we've tried to pull together connections. And from the standpoint, I'm going to take it from transportation, there's a lot of connections that are out there, as you know, from the highway connections with knowing what IDOT is doing, the tollway, what they are doing. From the county perspective, what does DuPage County, what's in their best interest? And then the 4 transit agencies. Every one of them, each transit agency has a different idea and a different approach. And so what we tried to do in the visioning from 2 years ago is put together a vision. But we do know that land use is up to the city here. It's your baby to develop. Now from a transportation perspective, first of all, you have the Thorndale corridor itself. And it's changing right now. Who would be the lead agency? If we took a straw poll now, it's probably going to be the tollway, most likely. In the perception that they're very intrigued with taking over this corridor to move traffic through and also to be a welcome mat for each of the communities. With Itasca, with Bensonville, if they start playing along a bit. But in any event, we see that, number one, as an opportunity in working with the tollway of funding interchanges and funding access, because we know that the cost of the roadway itself is only about 70% of the cost. The other 30% is for the whole street system of how to make the community compatible with the roadway and the roadway compatible with the street system. So number one, it's the tollway. Secondly, with this being a regional significant improvement, we would be working with DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference and identifying arterial and collector improvements that could be funded through the STP program, similar to what you've done in the past, but we've been very aggressive in the past with identifying different types of improvements, not only for the roadway part, but then also from a transit perspective. The whole area of the transit, with whether it's a BRT system, whether it's bus lanes, whether it's a separate type of an issue, there's a whole analysis, but there's a whole extra set of funding that's available for that. And then lastly, the area of economic development, that there are pots of money within the state that can be used for roadway improvements that can create opportunities from a development point of view. Industrial development, as an example, and we've done that within about 7 different communities within the Chicagoland area where we've utilized state monies for roadway improvements adjacent to like an industrial development, or it could be a recreational type of a development. So there are about 10 different ways that we would go through and work with the city from a transportation perspective, but the key is land use leads. We've got to decide upon and have a consensus of what the city's looking to do from a land use, and then we can develop a compatible roadway system that then we can recommend different financing options for you.
Mr. Friedman?
Thank you.
How would you, I'd like you to take the floor, how would you amass land at the corridor intersections for the roadway on, say, 83 and Wooddale Road is in the skit that you showed, that your group showed, and you do believe that 2 exits are more important than 1?
Right, well, the land assembly for roadways is really usually a function of IDOT, and they'll do ultimately what they have to do to create that right of way, and they'll break the eggs they have to break to make that omelet. With the funding issues as Rick discussed, but also what we have in terms of the development opportunity, and I'm sort of looking at that at the same plan concept that came out of the earlier work. It's in this area, and here's where we have a much more complex land assembly problem. And, assembly of land for the highway, people are going to be upset they may be upset if their property is taken, or they may not. In this situation, we have multiple landowners. I understand in this particular area currently there are 3 major landowners. There are a number of others, and the major landowners at least are economically motivated, so as I understand it. And so the key tool that we have, the things we need to tap into is to tap into the private market and to their economic motivation. Now we, in this plan, actually had about 1 million square feet of office space and 2 million of industrial. And the key thing about what the uses are is that the value of land is simply a function of the uses and the amount that you're allowed to build on it. Land is worth, other than what you can build on it, land is worth the value of the crop and the cost of the infrastructure. That's it. If you can't build anything on it. If you can build something on it, it's worth a lot more. It might be worth $5, $10, $15 per square foot of building. You looked at another way, $25, $35, $50 a square foot of site, depending on how much you can put on the site. And the market work that we did as part of the earlier study tells us that there's probably 4 million square feet of office that's developable in this area within 10 years or so, could be attracted. There's several million square feet of industrial if you want that. And that creates private land value, and that private land value, if we create that for the existing owners, provides a framework for negotiation to do redevelopment from their perspective. Then the second aspect of that is to use a tool such as TIF, tax increment finance, which I know you've used elsewhere in the village, in the city, and to use that as a tool for public infrastructure, and occasionally as a tool for site acquisition or other developer assistance that might be needed. And that, again, will flow off of the land development that you determine to permit there, combination of office, hotel, other uses, some industrial, a lot of other industrial in the area. This may not be the area where you want to have industrial. You may want to move away from its industrial history. So it's going to be, in my view, the development finance part of it, a lot of it's going to focus on land acquisition, and hopefully we can structure it in such a way that we tap the value we create for the landowners and the developers, for them to do the land acquisition and use such things as TIF for public improvements as a part of the process of redevelopment. That was mostly an answer to the first question, so there may be more to your question that you'd like me to answer.
Well, I think if I paraphrase what you're saying, is that land values are based on what you can build on the property. If you can't build anything, the land is worth whatever the crops will yield in the free market. So your concept is to create land value by increasing the density usage by putting in the business area and by putting in office park area. And you have it right at the Wooddale exit. So if that's a train station there, you'd be able to bring people in from Chicago to work in Wooddale via the exit
Yep.
at Wooddale Road.
Correct.
So Wooddale Road is going to be not just a turnkey area for cars to turn off the expressway or get on the expressway, but it's going to be a pedestrian transportation area to flow people as pedestrians into the city. So everything has to be close by so that they can walk. It's got to be within a short 3-4 block area. I'm trying to look at this map and I can't make out the name of the street where the purple ends.
And the,
What
and
street is
this
that?
particular concept? Yeah,
Is that Foster?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of what Lakota would do comes in terms of setting the framework that makes this a walkable, accessible, and creating the building sites. And I'm going to turn this over to John, but I want to say that in the Palatine plan, the brilliance was the creation of multiple development opportunities in a framework that worked. So you had a lot of developers able to work in that area and create this walkable environment.
And the other thing we're finding is that, especially in this area, I think it came up during our process, it's still coming up from people we run into, is that people are still uncertain what it is that's going to happen with all these road improvements and the access. The more we can calm the decision makers down as to where do you want office, where do you want business park, where the interchange could be someday, where transit may come someday, the easier it's going to be for people to get their mind around what the opportunities are here. We'll be doing the homework for them. And in the Palatine case, developers that weren't even looking at that downtown, they just thought it was nothing. All of a sudden they saw this is what the community approved. These are the heights, the depths, the bulks, and the uses, and here's the sites, and you plug them right in, and there were so many people that said the homework was done and they can move faster. So we would help set this up, and I think from talking to Ross in our interview committee, you want to do something first-class creative here, and we really have something to work with. Again, if we were squished like to the east in Rosemont there, not a lot of room to work with. I think we have more room to do something here. And it'll be a visioning to say, what if that moved? What if that stayed? What if that's the front door? What if it's not the front door? Could we move that business over here? And we would look at all those things with you.
In the development, you're concentrating on Foster to Thorndale. What do you concentrate between Foster and Irving Park?
Well, our initial charge from the county was to look at the economic development opportunities. And if there was residential in some of those opportunities, fine, but not to get into every neighborhood because it would have been a huge study.